Welcome back today, guys. Today we're going to be going over chapter 17. We're going to be looking into U.S. westward expansion. Okay, so you've done your reading questions for chapter 17. We're a little bit familiar with the vocabulary, some of the main things that are going through. Today we're mainly going to be looking at two things in chapter 17. Okay, two main standards. One is 8.49. We're going to analyze the concept of manifest destiny and its impact on the development of the nation and describe the economic incentives for westward expansion. Okay, so we're going to be looking at what manifest destiny is, the impact that it has on the United States and how we develop as a country. And we're going to look at some of the reasons for people going west. Okay, there's a lot of money involved in us moving toward the west. We're going to look at a few of those today. The second standard is 8.52. We're going to analyze the reasons for and outcomes of groups moving west, okay, including the significance of fur traders, Mormons, the Oregon Trail, and the Santa Fe Trail. All right, so we're looking at two groups of people, the fur traders and the Mormons, and then we're going to look at two trails that they use to move west, the Oregon Trail and the Santa Fe Trail. Okay, so here we go. All right. A few objectives first. All right, so several objectives here basically going off of those standards. All right, we're going to analyze the concept of manifest destiny. We're going to analyze the impact of the concept of manifest destiny on the development of the nation. We're going to describe the economic incentives for westward expansion, analyze the reasons for and outcomes of fur traders moving west, analyze the reasons for and outcomes of the Mormons moving west, and then we're going to analyze the significance of the Oregon Trail and analyze the significance of the Santa Fe Trail. All right, so basically looking again at those standards, those two standards, 8.49 and 8.52. Okay, so here we go. Manifest destiny. All right, so from 1801 to 1861, people were encouraged to move west in the United States. All right, we wanted to expand west. Now, manifest destiny itself is the belief that the U.S. should stretch from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so from sea to shining sea. We've probably heard it in songs, poems, what have you. Okay, we want the U.S. to stretch from an ocean to ocean. All right. Now, this belief came from Americans' view that their lifestyle was superior to the Native Americans. Okay, so we still have to keep that in the back of our mind. Native Americans are living in these lands in the West, okay? So we're going to have to move them. They're going to have to go somewhere, okay? Or they're going to have to basically embrace American culture. All right, so a little close-up of that picture here on the last slide. This is a very famous painting of manifest destiny, all right? And I'll just kind of go through it real quick. If you're looking at a map on paper, okay, west is always going to be to the left. Okay, so we can see here that this angel, okay, who is actually Liberty, okay, she's Liberty, she's holding the book just like the Statue of Liberty. She is going to the left of this picture, okay, which would be the direction of west. And we see a couple of things here. Over here to the left, we see this herd of buffalo or bison. All right, we also see Native Americans. And then we see different kinds of people moving that direction. Okay, so we have a stagecoach here, stagecoaches here going to the left. We have a covered wagon that they would use to move west. All right, men on horses. We have miners here with their pickaxes. We have a homestead here with people farming in the bottom right-hand corner. We see two trains. We also see a river back here with steamships on it. And one thing that she's holding this telegraph wire. Okay, so some of those inventions that we talked about in chapter 13 are coming back here in chapter 17, okay, in our expansion toward the west. Okay, we can even see it in the background here. This part looks dark and gloomy and stormy, while the east, or the right side of the picture, is full of sunlight. Okay, because it's been civilized. Okay, people have lived in it. All right, and people think that the west is uncivilized. Okay, so this is a very famous painting that goes with manifest destiny. All right. Now, looking at reasons to move. All right. Why are these people going to move to the West? All right. The first people to move are missionaries. All right. Their goal was to convert Native Americans to Christianity. All right. The Spanish had done this when they settled in Mexico and moved up into California, Arizona, New Mexico. They set up these missions in order to convert Native Americans. All right. We also see people move west to farm. All right. We have a very large area of land here that is farmland, and it is still used as farmland to this day. People go and settle towns. They start businesses out here away from the east, and they also mine for gold. One group in particular that we'll talk about later will be the 49ers that go to California. Okay. Another reason was they thought that the land was empty and available. They thought that there was just this empty land out there, okay, toward the west. In reality, though, there were Native Americans living there, okay? So those are some of the reasons to move. Missionaries wanted to convert Native Americans. They had farmland, wanted to start towns, start businesses, mine for gold. And they also just thought that it was empty land waiting to be settled, okay? So some of these incentives that we were talking about earlier. Okay, so why go west still? All right, first is land. All right, that is one of the big ones. Land out there is cheap and it is fertile. Okay, there's a lot of land that the government is willing to sell. It is also very fertile farmland, much like we have here in the Southeast. Okay, the Midwest region, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, great for farming, still used for farming to this day. Another one is money. All right, that was an incentive. There were many opportunities to make money in the West, farming being a big one with that cheap and fertile land. All right, there was also logging, especially up in the Northwest, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, that part. Starting businesses, okay, in these new towns, you may be the first blacksmith in the area. You may be the first jewelry store in the area, something like that. All right. Another one was gold, of course. Gold is worth a lot of money in this day, and if you can find some, you may never have to work again in your life. The third incentive, freedom. Okay, slaves would also escape out and move west. Okay, so not only are they now going north, okay, but they are escaping to the west as well. And the last incentive is transportation. New modes of transportation and wagon trails made it easy to move west. Okay, so the steamboats and the railroads made it easier for people to get out there. All right, we're able to travel more today in this society because we have airplanes. Okay, same thing with them, they just have trains. All right, so those are 4 of the incentives to move west. Okay, now looking at our 2 groups, moving on and looking at our 2 groups. All right, the first we're going to look at are fur traders. So fur traders moved west to obviously trade and trap furs. That was their business. Okay, the French had set this trade up and this business up when they had colonies here in North America, when they owned Louisiana. All right, now we see kind of a revival here in the 1800s. And now Americans are moving west in order to trap and trade furs. Now, fur traders mainly traded with Native Americans, and they also sold to Europeans. Okay, so they would sell these furs to Europeans. Europeans would go and make clothes out of them, fur coats, fur hats, everything like that. All right. The last thing, the effect that this has is that we start to see a mix of Native American and European cultures. Okay, so Americans have a little bit of European culture still with them. All right, Native Americans, of course, have their own culture. We start to see a mix here in the West. All right, the second group, all right, are the Mormons. Now, the Mormons are seeking religious freedom. Okay. Joseph Smith founded the Mormons in 1830 in New York State. Okay. And they had 2 main beliefs. Okay. So Mormons are a branch of Christianity, but they have 2 beliefs. One is that Joseph Smith was a prophet of God. Okay. So Smith was a prophet. And the second one gets them kind of in trouble. Mormons believe in polygamy. Okay, so they allow men to have more than one wife in their religion. All right, that basically gets them in trouble in the United States. Not many people are fond of this idea, especially that are Christians, Protestants, where that it goes against their beliefs. Okay, so the Mormons are kind of shunned. They're kind of run out of town. Um, First, they move. They're of course move west altogether, but they first moved to Illinois from New York. They still get some hate in Illinois, and then move farther even west and settle in Utah around the Salt Lake. Okay, the Great Salt Lake, and that is where the Mormon Church is still to this day. Is in Salt Lake City, Utah. Okay, so we have fur traders looking to make money, and we also have the Mormons who are seeking religious freedom. Okay, now I told you we were going to look at two main trails. Okay, we're going to look at the Oregon Trail and the Santa Fe Trail and kind of what they mean for these people. All right, so the Oregon Trail was first created by fur traders and trappers. It took about 5 to 6 months to travel. Okay. It began in Missouri. Okay, so we're talking about taking 5 to 6 months to travel from Missouri to the Oregon Territory. Okay, basically where the state of Oregon is today. All right, so people were taking this trail from Missouri all the way to the Oregon Territory, and I'll show you that here in just a second. Of course, the main impact that the Oregon Trail has is that it helps westward expansion. Okay, like we talked about earlier, railroads, steamboats, and these trails help people get west a whole lot faster. All right, the Santa Fe Trail was primarily used by traders. Okay, now not fur traders and trappers, but just kind of regular traders. And it took 2 months about 2 months to travel the Santa Fe Trail. All right, it also began in Missouri, so we're talking about going from Missouri to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And of course, impact, it also helps with westward expansion. Okay, that's what both of these trails do. All right, so to look at this kind of on a map, this purple is the Mormon Trek. Okay, so this is where they were living in Illinois after New York. They follow this purple line here, which kind of meets up with the Oregon Trail, and then off into Salt Lake City here. All right, where that dot is, you can kind of see that purple arrow. The Oregon Trail and the Santa Fe Trail both start in Independence, Missouri, okay, which is right here on the western border of Missouri. And we can see that this red line is the Oregon Trail. All right, they're mainly going to follow this trail here up and through the Rocky Mountains and then into Oregon City in the Oregon Territory. Okay, so this trail took about 5 to 6 months to travel. All right, again, you're talking covered wagons pulled by horses and oxen, a very kind of slow way to travel. So it took about 5 to 6 months, especially going through the Rocky Mountains. Now, the Santa Fe Trail, a little shorter, also starting in Independence, Missouri. Okay, it's following this green line here. Okay, there's kind of two different branches that you can take. Again, not a little easier travel, okay, kind of more flat. You don't really have to go through a whole lot of the Rocky Mountains like you do going to Oregon. So it was a little shorter travel. Okay, it took again about 2 months to take the Santa Fe Trail. All right, so that is it for today. Okay, again, kind of a quick review looking at manifest destiny. The U.S. is destined to move west and stretch from ocean to ocean. Looking at some of the incentives: land, money, transportation, freedom, those kind of things. Two of the main groups that moved west: fur traders and the Mormons. And then these two trails that they took to get west. All right. So that is all we have for chapter 17 today. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, we will see y'all next time.